The mountain air had been cool enough to keep my bedroom window cracked open, letting in the steady whisper of pines from the ridge below. I'd fallen asleep to that sound, trusting the lock on my door, trusting the roof over my head, trusting the people under it somewhere around 2 a.m. Those quiet pines masked the faintest creak of the door. I didn't hear the soft tread across the carpet or the whisper of my desk drawer sliding open. I didn't feel the shift in the air when my wallet was lifted from the top. In the dim light, my younger sister Laya moved like someone on a mission, fingers closing over the black card tucked neatly in its slot. She slipped out the way she came, my breathing still, even my world still intact. It wasn't until dawn that the first vibration rattled the nightstand. I groaned, turning over, blinking at the pale light spilling through the blinds. My phone screen glowed with notifications. One, then another, then a cascade. At first, I assumed it was spam, but the numbers in bold, $1,250, $3,000, $3,400 cut through my fog like ice water. I sat up, heart ticking faster, scrolling through the timestamps, all within 20 minutes. Between 2 and 2:30 in the morning, airline tickets, a boutique I'd never heard of, a high-end jewelry store. The next transaction was smaller, $600, but still enough to make my stomach knot. I reached for my wallet on instinct. The weight was wrong before I even opened it. The slot where the card belonged was empty. I lived alone except for Laya, who'd been crashing for the last 2 months. My jaw tightened. The notifications kept coming, but my mind was already moving ahead, tracing the only path this could have taken and where it might lead next. I gripped the phone tighter, scrolling back through the charges to be sure my eyes weren't playing tricks on me. $1,250 to an airline. $3,000 at a luxury boutique I'd never set foot in. $3,400 for jewelry, $600 for some restaurant in a city I wasn't in. The room felt smaller with each line item I read. I pushed out of bed and crossed the hall. Lila's door was ajar, the blinds still drawn. Her bed was perfectly made. The air faintly scented with her perfume, but the charger on the nightstand blinked without a phone attached. I checked the kitchen, dark and cold, the bathroom empty. When I reached the front door, it was sitting slightly open, letting in a thin blade of mountain breeze. I closed it slowly as if sealing something in. My pulse was steady now, not because I was calm, but because the pieces were already falling into place. By 8, I had my coffee cooling beside me and my laptop open out of habit. I checked social media before diving into work. That's when her face filled the screen. Laya grinning ear to ear in a sleek airport lounge. One arm thrown around our cousin Tara, both held glossy boarding passes angled toward the camera. The timestamp 2:54 in the morning. The caption, "Life's too short, make it luxurious." The anger I expected didn't come in a sharp burst. It settled like a heavy coat across my shoulders. There was nothing frantic about it. I knew exactly where she was, what she was doing, and how she paid for it. I closed the browser, drained the last of my coffee, and sat very still. If she thought she'd gotten away with something, she was wrong. If she thought I'd come charging after her, she didn't know me at all. I had no interest in chasing her across a continent. I'd wait, and when she came back, I'd be ready. Laya had been the family jewel from the moment she was born. Everyone said she had a smile that could melt granite, and apparently it was enough to dissolve any notion of consequences. If she broke something, it was an accident. If she failed at something, it was because the task wasn't worthy of her talent. Every wrong turn was just another life experience she was meant to have. Aurora, on the other hand, was the reliable one. The one who didn't need to be reminded to do homework, who found after-school jobs to cover my own expenses, who knew better than to ask for help unless it was life or death. Dad Robert liked to call me steady, as though it were a compliment. It wasn't. It was a shorthand for "we can take from you without worrying you'll complain." When Laya turned 16 and wanted a car, Dad bought her a used convertible she promptly drove into a fence while texting. He replaced it the next week with something newer so she'd feel safe. When I turned 16, I got a lecture about saving for college and a reminder that public transportation was character building. Mom Ellen kept her role as referee by pretending the game wasn't happening. She'd nod along to Dad's decisions, murmur something about family harmony, and then ask me quietly if I could help your sister out. Just this once. Of course, just this once had stretched over years, paying her rent when she quit yet another job covering utility bills, because her roommate's situation fell apart, lending her my car when hers was in the shop. Even though I needed it for work every time I told myself I was keeping the peace. It wasn't peace, it was enabling dressed up as loyalty. And as I sat at my kitchen table, the glow of her Miami post still burned into my mind, I realized there was nothing left in me to give her. This time, she hadn't just crossed a line. She'd set fire to it. Dad would have believed me even less if he knew the truth about the card. It wasn't just a personal credit card. It was tied directly to my consulting business. Every client payment, every vendor transaction, every operational expense ran through that account. And I designed it to be as secure as possible. The bank's fraud alerts were just the surface. My own system built over years of late nights, and caffeine logged every single charge in real time. It pulled merchant details, cross-referenced them with geolocation data, and if the merchant had cooperating security, pulled still images from CCTV. Most people wouldn't think to protect themselves like this, but most people didn't know what it was like to have the rug pulled out from under them and be told it was just family. I froze the card before her plane was even halfway over the Atlantic. Then I filed the fraud report, uploading the first wave of data before my coffee had cooled. Every purchase was there in clean, irrefutable lines: the airline ticket to Miami, the boutique in South Beach, the duty-free champagne, even the $900 sandals she was probably wearing as she sipped first-class mimosas. The bank told me an investigator would be in touch. I knew they'd reverse the charges eventually, but eventually didn't pay my rent or keep my business running. I had a client payment due to clear in a few days, a payment that would cover a vendor invoice I couldn't afford to delay. If the account wasn't settled by then, it wouldn't just be an inconvenience. It could tarnish the reliability I'd spent years building. I started compiling everything into a neat package: timestamps, locations, photos where available. Not for Dad, not even for the bank. For me, a record that this wasn't a misunderstanding or a lapse in judgment. This was theft carried out with the confidence of someone who'd never had to fear consequences. By the time I closed the laptop, the sun was fully up, flooding the apartment with pale gold light. I sat back, hands wrapped around my coffee mug, letting the weight of the situation settle in my chest. When she walked back through my door, I wouldn't just be ready to confront her. I'd be ready to end the game entirely. Lila breezed back into my apartment exactly 7 days after her disappearing act, dragging 2 overstuffed suitcases that could have doubled as small closets. She wore silk lounge pants and a pair of blush pink sandals I recognized instantly from one of the charges. $900 in South Beach, Miami. Dad trailed behind her, hands in his jacket pockets. His expression already set in that familiar blend of disappointment and disapproval, like I'd been caught vandalizing the family name just by existing. She didn't bother with hello. He didn't either. I stood in the doorway to the kitchen, coffee mug in hand, pretending not to notice the way Lila scanned the apartment like she owned it. Her perfume, something expensive and heady, clung to the air. Dad cleared his throat and said they'd only be here a few minutes. Just to get a few things. Perfect, I said, keeping my tone light. Actually, I was going to invite you both to dinner later this week. My treat. We should clear the air. Lila smirked like she'd already won whatever argument she thought we were having. Dad's eyes narrowed suspiciously, but he nodded. If it means we can put this behind us. That's the idea, I said. By Friday, the table was set takeout from her favorite sushi place in neat containers. The kind of overpriced order she'd gush over. I'd arranged the plates, poured the tea, and set my laptop just out of sight on the sideboard. Inside was the file I'd been building all week. Receipts, timestamps, merchant records, and more than one high-resolution photo of her swiping my card. When they arrived, Lila floated to the table in the same silk robe she'd been wearing earlier in the week. Dad sat across from me, arms crossed. They both dug in quickly, making polite comments about the food. I let them. I smiled, passing the soy sauce across the table. So I said, my voice calm, almost casual, about the $11,500 you spent on my business card. Lila barely looked up from her plate when I mentioned the $11,500. She let out a quick, airy laugh. Oh my God, you're still on that. I told you I didn't touch your money. Dad set his chopsticks down, fixing me with that weary, put-upon look I knew too well. Aurora, enough. This paranoia of yours is exhausting. Your sister just got back from a trip she paid for herself. Let it go. I leaned back slightly, letting the quiet stretch just long enough to be uncomfortable. Then I reached to the sideboard, pulled my laptop into view, and with one click brought the first image onto the screen. Timestamp 2:54 in the morning, local airport lounge. Lila and Tara holding champagne flutes. Boarding passes clearly visible. Dad's jaw went slack. Lila's chopsticks slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the plate. Click. Next image. Duty-free shop at Miami International Airport. Lila's hand mid-swipe of my card. Designer bags hanging from her arm. Click. Another boutique in South Beach. The same sandals she was wearing at my table displayed in the shopping bag looped over her wrist. Stop, she said sharply, her voice cracking just a little. These could be faked. I tilted my head, feigning thoughtfulness. Could be, except the bank already confirmed every charge. They've reversed them pending the outcome of the fraud claim, and the police have a copy of this report. I tapped the screen. Case numbers at the bottom in case you'd like to check. Her face drained of color. Dad recovered enough to slam his palm against the table. You don't call the police on family. We settle things privately. My smile didn't reach my eyes. Privately is how this has gone on for years. Privately is why she thought she could do this without consequence. Lila pushed her chair back so abruptly it bumped the wall. You're ruining my life. No, I said, keeping my voice level. I'm ending the part of mine where you take without asking. The room went silent, save for the faint hum of the refrigerator. I closed the laptop, slid it aside, and folded my hands on the table. Already knowing what I was going to say next, I reached under the table, pulled out a thick manila envelope, and slid it toward Lila. She stared at it like it might explode. That's the police report, I said evenly. Every transaction you made, every piece of proof I have, and the case number if you feel like checking. You'll need it since you're moving out tonight. Her mouth opened, then snapped shut. Dad straightened in his chair. Absolutely not. She's your sister. You don't just throw her out over a mistake. I met his eyes, unblinking. I don't want either of you in my apartment again until you admit what she did and apologize for siding against me. Dad's face darkened. You're being heartless. Across from him, Lila's voice shot up in pitch. You're ruining my life. Something in me broke then, not from their words, but from the sheer absurdity of hearing them after everything they'd taken. My voice rose for the first time all evening, sharp enough to cut through the air. I'm saving mine. The silence that followed was thick, vibrating with the things none of us were saying. Lila's eyes darted toward Dad as if he might pull another miracle out of his pocket to shield her. He didn't move. I stood, walked to the front door, and held it open. Start packing, Lila, you've got until tonight. And Dad, if you want to be in my life, you know what needs to happen. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Lila shoved back from the table, the chair legs screeching against the floor. Dad followed her out, muttering under his breath. But I didn't bother to listen. When the door closed behind them, the apartment felt different, lighter but charged. The messages started within an hour. First from Lila, short bursts of guilt-wrapped barbs. You've always hated me. You're overreacting. This will tear the family apart. Then the voice memos came, half crying, half accusing her words, breaking under the strain of performance. By morning, it was Mom on my doorstep. She didn't knock, just walked in like she still had the right. She's staying at a motel, she announced, setting her purse on the counter. It's awful. You've humiliated your sister. I leaned back against the sink, arms crossed. I didn't humiliate her. She did that herself. Mom's mouth tightened. Family matters shouldn't be public. They're public because she made $11,500 worth of unauthorized purchases, and now the police are handling it. Her eyes flickered, but she didn't answer. She left soon after, muttering about Dad being furious. 2 days later, the call came from Detective Harris. The case had progressed. Lila had two options: repay the full amount and sign an admission of guilt or face formal charges. I thanked him, knowing which option she'd try to take. That afternoon, my phone lit up with a call from Tara. I let it ring twice before answering. "Aurora," she said in a falsely sweet tone. "We both know jail time would ruin her. Can't you just help her out?" I waited a beat. If I were you, I'd delete that Miami photo dump before the police start asking how you paid for your ticket. There was a sharp inhale. Then the line went dead. I shut my phone off for the rest of the evening. The apartment was quiet, save for the hum of my laptop fan. Somewhere out there, they were scrambling, calling each other, weaving excuses. I didn't care. My part was already in motion, and the next move wasn't mine to make. Lila showed up on a gray Tuesday afternoon. No makeup, hair pulled into a knot, the silk and perfume replaced by jeans and a faded hoodie. She hovered in the doorway, shifting from foot to foot before finally stepping inside. "They're offering to drop everything if I pay you back in 6 months," she said, not meeting my eyes. "But I need you to tell them you're okay with it." I leaned against the counter, keeping my voice even. "No payments go through my lawyer. I'm not signing anything. I'm not making calls, and I'm not smoothing this over." Her head snapped up, eyes glassy. "You're really done with me, aren't you?" "I was done when you took my card," I said. "This is just paperwork." For a moment, she stood there staring at me like she wanted to argue, but whatever words she'd been holding on to seemed to dissolve. Her shoulders slumped. She turned without another word and walked out, closing the door more gently than I expected. I watched through the window as she crossed the street, her hands buried deep in her hoodie pocket, head down against the wind. The apartment felt still again, the way it had in the days before she came back from Miami. This time, I knew that stillness wouldn't be broken. The case would play out. The payments would come or they wouldn't. And either way, the line between us was carved too deep to be crossed. When the phone rang a week later, I didn't need to check the caller ID to know it was my lawyer. 3 months later, my inbox pinged with an email from the bank. A deposit of $11,500 had cleared Lila's final repayment. My lawyer confirmed the case was officially closed, the admission of guilt signed, and the fraud now part of her permanent record. Dad hadn't looked me in the eye since the last time I saw him. He kept his gaze fixed somewhere over my shoulder, his conversation clipped and perfunctory. Mom had retreated into silence, reaching out only for obligatory holiday messages. The apartment had taken on a new rhythm in their absence. No unexpected knocks at the door. No urgent favors dressed as family emergencies. No quiet calculations about whether I could absorb someone else's bill this month. My work accounts were balanced, the vendor payments on time, my savings growing without the constant leak of obligation. But the change went deeper than numbers on a spreadsheet. For the first time in years, I woke without the weight of someone else's chaos pressing on my chest. I didn't flinch at late-night phone calls. I didn't brace for the next crisis I'd be expected to fix. The air in my own home felt different. Lighter, cleaner. Mine. That night, I stood at the door and turned the lock with deliberate care. The click was soft but final. If they try again, my answer won't need evidence, proof, or negotiation. It will be one word and it will be enough. No. Aurora learned a profound lesson about boundaries and self-preservation through her sister Lila's betrayal. For years, she had enabled Lila's recklessness, absorbing the financial and emotional costs under the guise of family loyalty. The theft of her business card, resulting in $11,500 in unauthorized charges, forced Aurora to confront the toll of her enabling. She realized that her reliability had been exploited, not appreciated, and that protecting her own stability financially and emotionally was not selfishness, but survival. By meticulously documenting Lila's actions, freezing the card, and pursuing legal recourse, Aurora reclaimed control, refusing to let family ties excuse theft. The confrontation backed by irrefutable evidence marked her shift from silent compliance to firm resolve. She understood that love for family doesn't mean tolerating harm, and her decision to evict Lila and demand accountability from her parents cemented this. The absence of their chaos brought peace to her home and mine, teaching her that saying no is a powerful act of self-respect, ensuring her life would no longer be defined by others' recklessness.
The message appeared in our family group chat at 9:47 p.m. on Thursday night, 3 days before Easter Sunday. I was sitting in my home office reviewing loan portfolios for Cornerstone Financial, when my phone buzzed with what would become the most expensive text message my family had ever sent. "Easter dinner this year is for immediate family only," the message from my sister Caroline read. "We want to keep things small and intimate. Hope everyone understands." Within minutes, the responses started flooding in. "Mom, that makes sense, sweetheart. Your house, your rules. Dad, looking forward to it. Should I bring wine? My brother Michael, perfect. Just the core family. My sister-in-law Amanda, can't wait. The kids are so excited." Then came the message that made everything crystal clear. "Caroline, just to be specific, Mom, Dad, Michael, Amanda and the kids. Sarah, we think it's best if you stay home this year." I stared at my phone, reading the message twice to make sure I understood correctly. My entire family would be gathering for Easter dinner, and I was explicitly uninvited. The follow-up messages explained their reasoning. "Michael, nothing personal, Sarah. We just want a peaceful holiday without any drama. Caroline, you've been distant lately and we think some space might be good for everyone. Amanda, maybe next year when things are less complicated." Less complicated. That was rich, considering I'd been the one quietly solving their financial complications for the past 18 months. I typed back, "Understood. Enjoy your day." What they didn't understand was that their intimate family gathering was only possible because of loans I'd personally approved through Cornerstone Financial. Caroline's house, where they'd be enjoying their family-only Easter, was mortgaged through my company. So was Michael and Amanda's home. Even Mom and Dad's refinancing last year had gone through Cornerstone. None of them knew I owned the company. To them I was just Sarah, the family member who'd become distant and complicated after my divorce 2 years ago. The one who didn't fit into their suburban family gatherings anymore. But I hadn't become distant by choice. I'd become distant because every family gathering turned into an interrogation about my personal life, my career choices, and my failure to remarry and settle down properly. "Sarah's going through a phase," Caroline had explained to relatives at Christmas. "We're hoping she'll figure things out soon." The phase she was referring to was building a multi-million-dollar financial services company from the ground up. Apparently, that was less impressive than her husband Derek's middle management position at an insurance company. Friday morning I called my business partner and CFO Marcus Rodriguez. "Marcus, I need you to run a report on our current mortgage holders." "Which portfolio?" "The Bennett family accounts." "All of them." "Sarah, is everything okay? You sound upset." "I'm fine. Just checking on some family investments." 20 minutes later, Marcus sent me the comprehensive report. Caroline and Derek's mortgage, $347,000 remaining balance, monthly payment of $2,890. Michael and Amanda's mortgage, $289,000 remaining, monthly payment of $2,340. Mom and Dad's refinanced mortgage, $156,000 remaining, monthly payment of $1,675. All three families had pristine payment histories. All three had received favorable interest rates because I'd personally reviewed and approved their applications. And all three had Easter Sunday payments scheduled for automatic withdrawal. I spent Friday afternoon walking around my neighborhood, thinking about family dynamics and financial leverage. I'd built Cornerstone Financial over 7 years, starting with a small business loan and growing it into one of the region's most successful independent mortgage companies. We held over $200 million in residential loans and employed 43 people. But to my family, I was just Sarah who worked in finance and couldn't seem to get her personal life together. Saturday evening, I made a decision that would change everything. I called our automated payment processing center and placed temporary holds on 3 accounts, effective immediately. The holds would prevent the scheduled Sunday payments from processing, triggering automatic notifications to the borrowers about failed transactions. Sunday morning, Easter Sunday, I was having coffee and reading the newspaper when my phone started ringing at 8:15 a.m. "Sarah." Caroline's voice was panicked. Are you awake? We have an emergency. What's wrong? Our mortgage payment was declined. Derek is at the bank right now, but they're saying there's some kind of problem with the loan company. The automated system says our payment failed, but we have plenty of money in our account. That sounds frustrating. It is. And the worst part is we can't reach anyone at the mortgage company because it's Easter Sunday. Derek is freaking out because he's worried this will affect our credit score. I'm sure it'll get sorted out. But Sarah, what if it doesn't? What if there's some kind of mistake and they think we missed a payment? We've never missed a payment in 8 years. Before I could respond, my call waiting beeped. It was Michael. Caroline, I need to take this other call. I'm sure everything will work out. Michael, what's up? Sarah, thank God you answered. We're having some kind of banking crisis over here. Our mortgage payment bounced this morning, but Amanda swears she set up the automatic transfer correctly. That's weird. It's not weird, it's terrifying. Amanda is crying because she thinks she messed up our finances somehow. The mortgage company's automated message says to call back during business hours, but that's not until Tuesday because of the holiday. Tuesday seems like a long time to wait. Exactly. Sarah, you work in finance, right? Do you know anything about mortgage processing errors? I chose my words carefully. Sometimes payment processing systems have glitches, especially over holiday weekends. Usually everything gets resolved once the business offices reopen. But what if they report us as delinquent? We're trying to refinance our car loan next month. My phone buzzed with another call. Dad. Michael, I should take this. It might be important. Sarah, sweetheart, are you having any problems with your bank today? No, Dad. Why? Your mother and I woke up to a message saying our mortgage payment failed to process. We're trying to figure out if it's a bank holiday issue or something wrong with our account. Did you call the mortgage company? We tried, but we just get a recording. The company is called Cornerstone Financial. Have you heard of them? I paused. I might have heard the name. Well, we're supposed to have brunch with the neighbors in an hour, but your mother is too stressed to leave the house. She's convinced we're going to lose our home over a missed payment. Mom's worried about one missed payment? You know how she is about financial obligations. She's never missed a bill in 43 years of marriage. This is devastating for her. Over the next hour, I received 6 more calls from various family members, all panicked about their mysteriously declined mortgage payments. The irony wasn't lost on me. The family that had excluded me from their Easter gathering was now desperately calling me for financial advice. At noon, Caroline called again. Sarah, I hate to bother you again, but Derek is having a complete meltdown. He's convinced this payment error is somehow connected to his work performance review next week. How would a mortgage payment affect his work review? He thinks his boss will find out about financial problems and question his reliability. Sarah, you know about banking stuff. Is there any way to fix this today? Caroline, most financial offices are closed on Easter Sunday. But there has to be someone we can call. Some emergency number or something. I was quiet for a moment, considering my options. Caroline, can I ask you something? Of course. Yesterday you said Easter was for real family only. What did you mean by that? Sarah, we don't have time for family drama right now. We're in financial crisis. I'm not trying to create drama. I'm trying to understand what real family means. It means, look, can we talk about this later? Right now I need to figure out how to reach someone at this mortgage company. What's the name of the company again? Cornerstone Financial. Derek found their website, but there's just a generic contact form and an emergency number that goes to voicemail. Have you tried looking up the company ownership? Sometimes if you know who runs the company, you can find alternative contact information. That's a great idea. Derek, did you hear that? Sarah thinks we should look up who owns Cornerstone Financial. I heard Derek in the background. I'm Googling it now. Okay, it looks like it's privately owned. The CEO is listed as, oh, that's weird. What's weird? Caroline asked. The CEO has the same last name as Sarah. Sarah Mitchell. But that's probably just a coincidence, right? The line went completely silent. Caroline, are you there? Sarah, Caroline's voice was very quiet. Derek just found the Cornerstone Financial website. The CEO is named Sarah Mitchell. Okay. Sarah, is that you? Is what me? Are you the CEO of our mortgage company? I took a deep breath. Yes. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Caroline. You own our mortgage? I own the company that holds your mortgage, yes. For how long? I founded Cornerstone 7 years ago. Your loan transferred to us when you refinanced 18 months ago. So when we applied for the refinancing, I personally reviewed and approved your application. And when Derek was worried about his credit score because of that late payment last year, I made sure it didn't get reported to the credit agencies. Sarah. Caroline's voice was shaking. Did you decline our payment this morning? I placed a temporary hold on the automatic processing, yes. Because we didn't invite you to Easter dinner? Because you made it clear I'm not considered real family. Caroline started crying. Sarah, we didn't know. You didn't know I owned the company. But you knew I was your sister. We assumed you worked for some big bank as like a loan officer or something. Why did you assume that? Because you never talked about your work. And you drive that old car and live in that modest house. I like my car. And I like my house. But Sarah, if you own a mortgage company, how much are you worth? Enough. Enough what? Enough to not worry about money. Enough to help family members when they need favorable loan terms. Enough to not need invitations to Easter dinner. Caroline was crying harder now. Sir, we messed up. We messed up so badly. Yes, you did. Can you fix our payment? Derek is having a panic attack. I can fix everyone's payments, Caroline. The question is whether I should. What do you mean? I mean your family decided I wasn't worth including in your Easter celebration. Why should I include you in my business considerations? Because we're family. Are we? Because yesterday you made it pretty clear that I'm not real family. My phone was buzzing with calls from Michael, Mom, and Dad. All of them probably figuring out the same connection Caroline had just made. Sarah, please. We were wrong. We were so wrong about everything. About what, specifically? About you not being important to the family. About you being distant and complicated. About, oh God, Sarah, we've been treating you like the family disappointment when you're the most successful person any of us know. Success isn't just about money, Caroline. But it's not just about money with you, is it? You've been helping us this whole time. The favorable interest rates, the flexible payment schedules when Derek was between jobs. I helped because you're family. Even when you didn't treat me like family. Sarah, can we start over? Can we fix this? I looked out my window at the sunny Easter morning. My family was probably gathered at Caroline's house right now, their perfect intimate gathering ruined by financial panic. Caroline put me on speakerphone. Hey, you're on speaker. Derek is here and Michael just arrived with Amanda and the kids. Hello everyone. A chorus of voices responded. Hi Sarah. Sarah, we're so sorry. We had no idea. I want to make something clear, I continued. I didn't create this situation to hurt you or to prove a point about money. Then why? Michael's voice. Because I wanted to understand what real family means to all of you. Yesterday you told me that real family was everyone except me. Today when you needed help I was the first person you called. Dad's voice came through the phone. Sarah, sweetheart, we were wrong. We've been wrong for a long time. About what, Dad? About not including you. About assuming you were struggling professionally. About thinking you needed our advice instead of asking if you needed our support. I don't need your support, Dad. I need your respect. Mom's voice tearful. Sarah, you have our respect. You've always had our respect. No, Mom, I've had your concern. You've been worried about me, not proud of me. But we are proud of you. Caroline interjected. We just didn't know what to be proud of. You could have asked. You're right. We should have asked about your work, your life, your achievements. Instead we made assumptions. I made a decision. Michael, check your phone. Your mortgage payment should process successfully now. Are you sure? I'm sure. Caroline, yours too. And Mom and Dad, your account is clear. Sarah, Derek's voice for the first time. Thank you. And I'm sorry for everything. Derek, you don't owe me an apology. You've been a good husband to my sister and a good father to your children. That's what matters to me. But we excluded you. Yes, you did. And now you know that exclusion has consequences. Amanda spoke up. Sarah, would you consider joining us for Easter dinner? I know it's last minute, but we'd really love to have you here. I thought about it. Amanda, I appreciate the invitation, but I don't want to be included just because you found out I'm wealthy. That's not why, Caroline said quickly. I mean, yes, we're shocked about the business and we feel terrible about not knowing. But Sarah, we want you here because you're our sister. Because Easter isn't complete without you. Even if I'm distant and complicated? You're not distant and complicated, Michael said. You're private and successful. We confused the two. And, Mom added, you're patient and generous. You've been taking care of us financially without us even knowing. I take care of people I love, Mom. Even when they don't think I'm real family. Sarah, Dad said, would you please come to dinner? We have a lot of apologizing to do and a lot of catching up on your life. I smiled, looking at the sunny day outside. Hey. But I'm bringing dessert. You don't need to bring anything, Caroline said. I'm bringing dessert because I want to, not because I need to. There's a difference. An hour later, I arrived at Caroline's house carrying a chocolate cake from the best bakery in town. The same family that had excluded me yesterday greeted me at the door with hugs and tears. Sarah, Caroline whispered as she hugged me, I'm so sorry. We've been terrible. You haven't been terrible. You've been human. Dinner was unlike any family gathering we'd had in years. Instead of interrogating me about my personal life, they asked about my business. Instead of offering unsolicited advice, they listened to my experiences. Instead of treating me like the family project, they treated me like the successful CEO I'd become. Sarah, Dad said as we sat around the table, can I ask you something? Sure. Why didn't you tell us about Cornerstone Financial? Because I wanted you to know me as your daughter and sister, not as your mortgage holder. But we could have been proud of you, bragged about you. Dad, your pride in me shouldn't depend on my bank account. It doesn't, Mom said firmly. We're proud of you for who you are. But Sarah, we're also amazed by what you've built. Why shouldn't we celebrate that? You can celebrate it. But you can't let it be the only thing you celebrate about me. As the afternoon progressed, the conversation became more natural. My nieces and nephew, initially shy around their suddenly important aunt, warmed up when they realized I was the same person who always remembered their birthdays and helped with school projects. Aunt Sarah, my 8-year-old niece Emma asked, are you rich? The table went quiet, everyone waiting for my response. Emma, I have enough money to help people I care about and to do work I enjoy. That makes me very fortunate. Are you richer than Daddy? Derek laughed. Emma, Aunt Sarah is much more successful than Daddy. But does that make her better than you? Smart kid. No, Emma. Success isn't about being better than other people. It's about using your talents to help others and make the world a little bit better. Like how you helped with our house? Like that, yes. After dinner, Caroline and I found ourselves alone in her kitchen, cleaning dishes. Sarah, can I ask you something personal? Go ahead. Are you lonely? The question surprised me. Sometimes. Aren't we all? I mean, with your divorce and building this big business, do you feel like you're missing out on the family stuff we all have? I considered the question carefully. Caroline, I chose to build something meaningful with my life. That meant making sacrifices and prioritizing differently than you did. I don't regret those choices. But do you want what we have? The marriages, the kids, the suburban life. I want what makes me happy. Some of that overlaps with what makes you happy and some of it doesn't. And what makes you happy? Building something that lasts. Helping people achieve their dreams of homeownership. Having financial security and independence. And yes, having family relationships that are based on mutual respect rather than obligation. Caroline smiled. I think we can do better on that last part. I think so too. As I prepared to leave that evening, the whole family gathered at the door. Sarah, Mom said, we want you to know that you're always welcome here. Not because of your business success, but because you're our daughter and sister. And, Michael added, we want to know more about your life. The real details, not just the surface stuff. I'd like that. One more thing, Caroline said. Next holiday, we're not making any guest lists without talking to everyone first. That sounds fair. Dad hugged me tightly. Sarah, I'm proud of the woman you've become. I should have told you that more often. You're telling me now, Dad. That's what matters. As I drove home, I reflected on the day's events. My family had learned that excluding me had financial consequences they hadn't anticipated. But more importantly, they'd learned that I was a person worth including regardless of those consequences. The mortgage payment drama had been resolved, but the relationship dynamics had shifted permanently. They now knew I was successful and capable of taking care of myself. I now knew they were capable of apologizing and changing their behavior. Monday morning, I called Marcus to debrief on the weekend's events. "So let me get this straight," he said. "You held up their mortgage payments to prove a point about family inclusion?" "I held up their mortgage payments to demonstrate the consequences of exclusion. And it worked. It opened a conversation that needed to happen." "Sarah, that was either brilliant or completely insane." "Maybe both. But Marcus, they needed to understand that relationships have consequences. They couldn't keep treating me as optional family while expecting me to treat them as priority family. And now we're building something more honest. They know who I really am and I know they're capable of respecting that person." The following Sunday, Caroline called to invite me to lunch. "Just the two of us," she said. "I want to hear about your business, your goals, your life. The real details, not the polite small talk we've been doing for years." "I'd like that. And Sarah, no more family events without you. You're not optional family. You never were." That lunch turned into a 3-hour conversation about everything we'd been too polite or too proud to discuss before. Caroline learned about the challenges of building a business, the satisfaction of helping families achieve homeownership, and the loneliness that sometimes came with success. I learned about her fears as a mother, her pride in Derek's steady progress at work, and her regret about not being a better sister during my divorce. "Sarah," she said as we parted ways, "I have one more confession." "What's that?" "I've been bragging about you all week. I told my neighbors, my book club, even Derek's boss. My sister owns a mortgage company and I had no idea how amazing she was." "Caroline." I know. You don't want to be loved just for your success. But Sarah, can't I be proud of your success and love you for who you are?" I smiled. "Yes. You can do both." 6 months later, family gatherings had completely transformed. Instead of avoiding questions about my work, I shared stories about interesting clients and business challenges. Instead of offering unsolicited advice about my personal life, my family asked how they could support my professional goals. Most importantly, invitations were never assumed. Every gathering included a conversation about who would be attending and why, ensuring that no one felt excluded or taken for granted. The Easter incident, as it became known in family lore, taught us all that relationships require intention and respect. Love isn't enough if it's not accompanied by consideration and inclusion. And sometimes, the most valuable lesson you can teach people is that excluding you comes with a cost, not because you're vindictive but because you're valuable. My family learned that I was worth including not just because I could help them financially, but because I brought something unique and important to our relationships. They learned to see me as a person, not a project. I learned that sometimes you have to demonstrate your value before people will recognize it, and that's okay. What matters is building relationships based on mutual respect rather than assumptions or obligations. The mortgage payments never failed again. But more importantly, the invitations never stopped coming, and they always included a genuine desire for my presence rather than a polite obligation to extend them. Sometimes the best investments aren't the ones that pay financial returns. Sometimes they're the ones that pay dividends in respect, understanding, and authentic family relationships. The text message arrived at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday while I was between patient consultations at Boston General Hospital. I'd just finished explaining a complex cardiac procedure to a worried family when my phone buzzed with what would become the most expensive misunderstanding of my mother's life. "Natalie, sweetheart, I need to tell you something about your college fund. Your sister Emma's wedding is costing more than we anticipated, and we've decided to use the money we set aside for your education. Emma needs this day to be perfect, and frankly, you've always been more practical about money than she has. I know you'll understand. Love, Mom." I stared at the message, reading it twice to make sure I understood correctly. My parents were using my college fund, money that had been sitting untouched for over 8 years, to pay for my sister's wedding. What made this particularly interesting was that I'd graduated from Harvard Medical School 3 years ago without borrowing a single dollar, thanks to the software patents I'd developed during my undergraduate years at MIT. The college fund Mom was referring to had been irrelevant to my education since I was 22 years old. I texted back, I want Emma to be happy too. Whatever makes her wedding day special. Mom responded immediately, "Thank you for being so understanding, honey. I knew you'd see the bigger picture. This wedding is going to be featured in Southern Bride magazine. Emma is so excited." What Mom didn't know was that the bigger picture included the fact that I'd been quietly paying for my own medical school residency expenses and living costs through licensing fees from 3 software applications I'd developed. The apps, focused on medical scheduling and patient management systems, had been generating substantial royalty payments for years. My family knew I'd done some programming in college, but assumed it was just a hobby that helped me pay for textbooks. They had no idea that MedFlow Solutions, my software development company, held patents on systems now used in over 400 hospitals nationwide. That evening, I called my financial advisor, Jennifer Walsh, to discuss portfolio allocations. "Jennifer, I need to ask you about something personal." "What's on your mind, Natalie?" "My parents just informed me they're using my old college fund for my sister's wedding. I'm curious about the current value of that account." "Let me pull up your family's information." "Natalie, are you asking about the education fund your parents opened when you were born?" "That's the one." According to my records, that account has grown to approximately $127,000 over the years. Your parents have been making regular contributions even after you graduated. I paused. "They've been continuing to contribute?" "Yes, quite substantially. It looks like they've been treating it as a general education fund for any future family needs, grandchildren's education, continuing education for you, that sort of thing." "And they're planning to withdraw all of it?" "That's what the paperwork indicates." "Natalie, is everything okay with your family's finances?" "I think they're just prioritizing Emma's wedding. You know how these things can get expensive." What I didn't mention to Jennifer was that Emma's wedding had already spiraled into a $180,000 extravaganza. The college fund would barely cover the venue and catering costs. Friday evening, I joined the family for dinner at our childhood home in Lexington. Emma was practically vibrating with excitement as she showed off wedding planning binders, fabric samples, and vendor contracts. "Natalie, wait until you see the photos from our venue tasting," Emma gushed, pulling out her phone. "The Chateau Belmont is absolutely magical. It's like something from a fairy tale." "It looks beautiful," I said, admiring the photos of rolling gardens and an elegant ballroom. "And expensive," Dad added with a somewhat strained smile. "But our Emma deserves the best." Mom nodded enthusiastically. "We've been saving for this day since she was little. Every girl deserves her dream wedding." "Speaking of saving," Emma turned to me, "Mom told me you were okay with us using your college money. That's so generous of you, Nat. I want your wedding to be everything you've dreamed of. I promise I'll pay you back somehow. Maybe when Brad gets that promotion he's hoping for." Brad, Emma's fiancé, was a perfectly nice guy who worked in marketing for a small tech startup. His promotion would bump his salary from $52,000 to maybe $65,000, hardly enough to repay a 6-figure wedding fund. "Emma, don't worry about paying me back. Just focus on enjoying your engagement." Dad cleared his throat. "Actually, girls, we should discuss the budget details. Even with Natalie's college fund, we're going to be stretched pretty thin." He pulled out a notebook filled with calculations. "The venue is $47,000. Catering is $38,000. Flowers are $12,000. Photography is $8,500. "Dad," I interrupted gently, "how much is the wedding costing total?" "After everything, dress, cake, music, transportation, rehearsal, dinner, we're looking at about $185,000. "And you're using my college fund to cover how much of that?" "The fund will cover about $127,000. Your mother and I are taking out a home equity loan for the rest." I felt my stomach drop. "You're mortgaging the house?" "It's not a big deal," Mom said quickly. "We have plenty of equity and the payments are manageable. Besides, this is Emma's one chance to have the wedding of her dreams." "What about your retirement plans?" "We'll figure it out. Family comes first." That night, I lay awake thinking about my parents' financial situation. At 58 and 61, they should be maximizing their retirement savings, not taking on new debt for a wedding. Dad was a high school principal and Mom worked part-time at a dental office. Their combined income was maybe $85,000 a year. Meanwhile, my licensing fees from MedFlow Solutions had generated over $2.3 million in the past 3 years alone. I was earning more monthly than my parents made annually, but they had no idea because I'd never found the right way to tell them about my business success. To them, I was just Dr. Natalie who worked long hours at the hospital and lived modestly in a small apartment near downtown Boston. They assumed my resident physician salary was my only income. Saturday morning, I decided to visit Emma at her apartment to understand her vision for this expensive wedding. "Emma, can I ask you something?" "Sure." She was addressing save-the-date cards at her kitchen table, surrounded by wedding planning chaos. "Is this wedding what you really want, or is it what you think you should want?" She looked surprised. "What do you mean?" "I mean, $185,000 is a lot of money. Are you comfortable with mom and dad going into debt for your wedding day?" "Natalie, every bride deserves one perfect day. Mom has been planning my wedding since I was 12 years old. She's more excited about this than I am, honestly. But what do you want? If money weren't a factor, what would your ideal wedding look like?" Emma was quiet for a moment. "You know what? I'd probably want something smaller. More intimate. Brad and I talked about eloping to Italy, but Mom cried when we mentioned it." "You wanted to elope?" "We wanted to spend our money on a house down payment and a honeymoon. But Mom said a wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event that brings families together. And now you're having the wedding Mom wants instead of the wedding you want." "I guess so. But Nat, I can't break her heart. She's been dreaming about this day for years." I understood then that this wasn't really Emma's wedding, it was Mom's production with Emma as the star performer. Monday morning, I called the Chateau Belmont to inquire about their payment policies. "Good morning, this is Dr. Natalie Harrison. My sister Emma is having her wedding at your venue in October." "Oh yes, the Harrison Matthews wedding. How can I help you?" "I wanted to confirm the payment schedule for the event." "Let me pull up the contract. We have a $15,000 deposit already paid, and the remaining $32,000 is due 30 days before the event." "And if the payment doesn't go through?" "We would need to discuss alternative payment arrangements or potentially cancel the booking." "I see. Thank you for the information." That afternoon, I made a decision that would change everything. I called my attorney Robert Kim, who handled my intellectual property and business affairs. "Robert, I need to set up a family trust with some specific parameters." "What kind of trust are you thinking about?" "I want to create an education and family milestone fund. It should be able to cover educational expenses, weddings, home purchases, major life events for family members." "What's the initial funding amount?" "Let's start with $500,000. "Natalie, that's a substantial trust. What's prompting this decision?" I explained the situation with Emma's wedding and my parents' financial sacrifice. "So you want to help with the wedding costs without your family knowing the money is coming from you?" "I want to help in a way that doesn't change how they see me or treat me. If they suddenly know I'm worth millions, it might complicate our relationships." "I understand. We can structure this as an anonymous family foundation that provides grants for significant life events." 2 weeks later, everything was in place. The Harrison Family Foundation was established as a legitimate charitable trust focused on supporting educational and life milestone expenses for qualifying family members. On Thursday evening, Mom called me in tears. "Natalie, I don't know what we're going to do." "What's wrong, Mom?" "The wedding venue called today. They need the final payment next week, but the home equity loan paperwork is taking longer than expected. The bank says it might be another month before the funds are available." "Have you talked to Emma about adjusting the timeline?" "Emma is beside herself. The invitations are already sent, the dress is being altered, the photographer is booked. We can't postpone everything now." "What about using the college fund money?" "We already spent most of that on the deposit and other vendors." "Natalie, I'm scared we're going to have to cancel the wedding." This was the moment I'd been waiting for. "Mom, what if I told you there might be another option?" "What kind of option?" "Well, I've been doing some research and there are actually foundations that provide grants for family milestone events. Educational funds that have expanded their mission to include weddings, home purchases, things like that." "That sounds too good to be true. It's worth looking into. Let me make some calls tomorrow and see what I can find out." Friday afternoon, I called Mom back with good news. "Mom, you're not going to believe this, but I found something." "What?" "There's a foundation called the Harrison Family Foundation. I know, crazy coincidence with the name, and they provide grants for educational expenses and major family milestones. How did you find out about this? I asked some colleagues at the hospital about emergency funding options, and one of them mentioned this foundation. Apparently, they've helped several families with wedding expenses when traditional financing fell through. How much could they provide? I filled out a preliminary application, and they indicated they could potentially cover the entire remaining wedding cost. Mom was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. Mom? Are you there? Natalie, are you telling me there's a foundation that might pay for Emma's entire wedding? That's what it looks like. The foundation focuses on families who have demonstrated financial responsibility and have legitimate educational or milestone funding needs. What do we need to do? I already submitted the initial paperwork. They'll need some financial documents from you and Dad, and they want to verify the wedding expenses, but the foundation representative seemed very optimistic. This is a miracle. It really might be. Over the weekend, I worked with Robert to expedite the grant approval process. By Monday morning, everything was ready. The foundation would cover the remaining $58,000 in wedding expenses, plus provide an additional $25,000 for the honeymoon and miscellaneous costs Emma and Brad hadn't budgeted for. Mom called me crying happy tears. Natalie, the foundation approved our application. They're paying for everything, the venue, the remaining catering costs, even Emma's honeymoon. That's incredible, Mom. The woman from the foundation said our family demonstrated exactly the kind of financial responsibility and educational values they want to support. You and Dad have always been responsible with money. She also said something interesting. She said the foundation was particularly impressed by your educational achievements and career path. Apparently, having a daughter who went to medical school was a significant factor in their decision. I smiled. Well, I'm glad my education could help Emma in some way. Natalie, this means we don't have to take out the home equity loan. We don't have to touch your college fund. The foundation is covering everything. And Emma gets her dream wedding. She gets her dream wedding and our family doesn't go into debt. I can't believe how lucky we are. That evening, the whole family gathered to celebrate the miracle funding. Emma was ecstatic, Brad was relieved, and my parents looked 10 years younger without the financial stress. I still can't believe this foundation exists, Dad said, shaking his head in amazement. The woman I spoke with said they've been operating quietly for several years, I explained. They don't advertise because they want to help families who are genuinely in need, not people looking for free money. What kind of requirements did they have? Emma asked. Educational achievement, financial responsibility, family stability. Dad being a principal for 20 years and Mom's work in healthcare were big factors. Plus my medical degree and Brad's steady employment history. It's like they were looking for families exactly like ours, Mom mused. Sometimes things just work out perfectly, I agreed. The wedding took place on a perfect October day. Emma looked radiant in her dress. The venue was everything she dreamed of, and the celebration was genuinely joyful without the undercurrent of financial stress that had been building for months. During her maid of honor speech, Emma thanked our parents for their sacrifice and mentioned the miraculous foundation that had made everything possible. Sometimes, she said, angels appear in the most unexpected forms. Our family was blessed by strangers who believed in us and supported our happiness. If only she knew how close to home that angel actually lived. 6 months later, I finally found the right moment to tell my family about MedFlow Solutions. We were having Sunday dinner, and Dad was talking about a new software system the school district was considering for scheduling. It's called MedFlow Solutions, he said. Ironically, it was designed for hospitals, but apparently it works great for educational scheduling too. I've heard of that company, I said carefully. The principal at Jefferson High says it's revolutionized how they handle staff scheduling and student appointments. Makes me wish I understood technology better. Dad, what if I told you I could give you a demonstration of how it works? You know about this software? Actually, I developed it. The room went completely silent. You, what? Mom asked. I created MedFlow Solutions during my last year at MIT. The software you're describing, I wrote it. Natalie, Emma said slowly, are you saying you own that company? I own the patents and licensing rights, yes. Dad stared at me. Sweetie, how much money does this software generate? Enough to live comfortably. Enough to live comfortably or enough to fund wedding foundations? I looked around the table at my family, all of them staring at me with growing understanding. Emma, do you remember how grateful you were to that mysterious foundation that paid for your wedding? Of course. It was the most generous gift our family has ever received. What if I told you that gift came from someone who loves you and wanted your wedding day to be perfect? Emma's eyes widened. Natalie, was that you? The Harrison Family Foundation is real and it will continue to help our family with major life expenses. But yes, the funding comes from my software licensing fees. Mom started crying. You paid for Emma's wedding? I paid for Emma's happiness. And for Dad's ability to retire without debt. And for the peace of mind that comes from knowing our family doesn't have to choose between dreams and financial security. But why didn't you just tell us you had the money? Dad asked. Because I wanted Emma's wedding to be about celebrating her marriage, not about my bank account. I wanted you and Mom to feel proud of providing for your daughter, not indebted to me. Natalie, Emma whispered, how much money do you actually have? Enough to take care of all of us for the rest of our lives. The conversation that followed lasted 3 hours. They learned about the patents, the licensing deals, the investment portfolio that had grown from software royalties. I learned about their fears that they hadn't provided enough for their daughters, their pride in my medical career, and their amazement that I'd built a technology company alongside becoming a doctor. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Mom asked. Because I needed you to love me for who I am, not what I've accomplished. I needed to know that your support was unconditional. Our support has always been unconditional, Dad said firmly. I know that now. But I needed to be sure. Emma hugged me tightly. So when you said you wanted me to be happy, I meant it in every possible way. And the college fund Mom was going to use is still yours if you ever want to go back to school. The foundation can cover a lot of dreams, Emma. Over the following months, family dynamics shifted in subtle but important ways. My parents stopped worrying about retirement and started planning travel adventures. Emma and Brad used foundation funding to buy their first home. Dad implemented MedFlow solutions at his school and became the district's unofficial technology advocate. But the most important change was that my family finally saw me as I really was, not just Dr. Natalie who worked long hours, but Dr. Natalie who had built something extraordinary while pursuing her passion for medicine. The college fund Mom had worried about became the seed money for an expanded foundation that would eventually help cousins, future grandchildren, and family members not yet born. Natalie, Mom said during one of our weekly phone calls, I need to apologize. For what? For assuming you needed that college money more than Emma needed her wedding. I should have realized that our brilliant daughter who went to Harvard Medical School probably had her finances figured out. Mom, you couldn't have known about the software business. But I could have asked about your life instead of making assumptions. I could have trusted that you'd built something stable for yourself. You can ask now. I can ask now, she agreed. So tell me, what are you working on next? As I described my latest software project, a patient care coordination system that could revolutionize hospital efficiency, I realized that the most valuable thing about wealth wasn't the money itself. It was the freedom to help people you love without them feeling diminished by that help. Emma got her fairy tale wedding, my parents got their financial security, and I got the satisfaction of providing both without anyone feeling like charity cases. Sometimes the best gifts are the ones people think come from strangers, because that lets them feel blessed rather than indebted. And sometimes the most successful business ventures are the ones that let you take care of family without them ever having to know they needed taking care of. The Harrison Family Foundation continues to operate quietly, supporting educational goals and life milestones for people who deserve good things but might not otherwise be able to afford them. And sometimes, late at night when I'm working on new software innovations, I think about that text message from Mom about using my college fund. She was right that Emma deserved a perfect wedding day. She just never imagined that her other daughter had already ensured it would be perfect with or without that old college fund.